The next part of your Dot Symmetry project is inking and erasing. For this part, you will need a fine point Sharpie, you will need an eraser, and you will also need a ruler. So for the inking, that means you've finished drawing. You've used all 528 dots. You've connected one dot at least to another dot. So there are no island dots. When we ink, we need to be careful that we show good lines that are not over-inked and that stop at the dot. One problem that we run into with inking, especially with a Sharpie marker, is because it's felt tip. When we use it and we put our marker down, the minute we touch marker to paper, it starts flowing with ink. And the longer we leave it in one spot, the larger our dot gets. So we want to be careful with how much, and then we can see that it also bleeds. So be careful with your markers. When they're not in use, you make sure the cap is put on snugly. You don't need to put it on super tight. And when in use, the lid can sit on the back of the marker, and you just lightly put it on the back. It does not need to be forced onto the back. Okay. When we're inking, we use a ruler to make sure that our inking lines stay nice and precise. So if I'm right-handed, I'm going to be holding my ruler with my left hand in two spots, just like we learned in good ruler techniques. If we just hold in one spot, the ruler will move. So holding in two spots. If I'm left-handed, I'm going to hold the ruler with my right hand and draw with my left. You can see here, I am also holding it in two places. So we want to be comfortable when we are drawing our ink lines. So what you're going to do is be able to move the paper around. This gives you more flexibility in making sure you feel comfortable when you ink. You can see I've inked some of this already. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm going to do. Along here, you'll see 3 dots that I need to ink because I've drawn them with my pencil. When inking, you're going to line up the ruler really close to the dots. I'm not actually going to cover the dots. If I actually cover the dots like this, then I won't be able to ink it properly. So for inking, we come just off of those dots. Do you see that? Now I'm going to zoom out a little more. And you can see that my ruler also lines up with dots along the sides along here. This is a good way to check that your ruler is in the correct spot. So if we zoom back in to see, I'm barely touching, I've held my ruler in place, I'm holding it in 2 spots. You can see one of them is just above here. And then when I draw, I have my marker at an angle. I'm not straight up and down. I'm at an angle. And I pull to the dot. See how that covers the dots? Now, to draw another line, I'm going to move my paper so that it is comfortable to draw. I'm going to line up and be just next to the dots, not actually on them, not covering them, just barely almost touching them. I look to my dots on either side, and then I draw. You'll notice that my marker is at an angle and that I am not drawing straight up and down. When I have my marker at an angle, I'm getting a nice even line, and I am also making sure that I keep the tip of my marker pointed. This is one way we can help our markers stay nice and sharp even longer. You'll notice I'm moving the paper around, then getting to where I feel comfortable, lining up my dots, and then drawing at an angle. Now, one thing with plastic rulers to be aware of is that sometimes ink gets on this side of the ruler, and that's all right, but be careful because if it's not dry, sometimes when you pull away the ruler from your drawing, it will pull ink with it. So for this purpose, I like to move my ruler to different sections as I ink different areas to make sure that I have a nice dry section of ruler and I'm not going to be pulling ink away. See that nice angle on there? This is going to keep it sharp. This is going to keep it nice. Notice I'm doing each section individually, moving through from line to line, connecting with other dots, making sure that I am lined up so I have a nice even line. You will move through the piece until you've got it all inked. After you're done inking, you will need to erase your lines, okay? And that's where we have the ruler. No longer needed, nor the marker, and then we'll just use the eraser. Remember, when using an eraser, we want to erase within this section of our hand. We don't want to erase just holding on with a finger. We don't want to erase just holding on to the edge. That's going to create issues as we erase. We don't want to bend our paper. We don't want to ruin the paper. So here you can see the areas that I inked today. I'm going to put my hand over, and then in small little circles, I'm going to erase over the areas that I drew. And then I will brush off the excess. And you can see these small circles. It's good to go over the whole piece and not just sections where you think you can see graphite. Just make sure that you're going through. I like to follow the designs to make sure I've gotten everything. And it does move pretty quick. There's a difference between doing this and when someone does this and erases back and forth this way. When we go in small circles around the lines we drew, we're actually picking up any excess graphite that we don't need and don't want to see, because this is not a graphite drawing. We just use graphite to show us where our marker lines are going to go. So you can see that those small circles moving create good erasing for us. Once the entire thing has been inked and then erased, check it with your teacher, and then you will be able to move on to the coloring.